Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars and some of my favourite people, and we've got one for you this morning. Jim Bowen, how are you?
Good morning.
Do you know, it's great to talk to you. I tell you why, it's a bit like having an uncle who you've loved for many years who you've never really met. You've been part of my life as long as I can remember.
Well, that makes me feel very important.
I live in Nottingham, you see, and of course you have a great association with our town. Central TV was a big home for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's gone now, isn't it?
It's a shame, yeah, turned into council offices. They couldn't even sell it. Your life, let's talk about it. It's been blessed, hasn't it? What a lovely life.
I've been very lucky, yeah. I was a school teacher till I was 29, and then luckily stepped into the comedians when that programme was on from Granada. And so as a stand-up comic, I got television fairly early, and that helped. And by the time Bullseye came along, I was semi-established and was around when they were looking for somebody to do it again.
Let's go back a bit further than that. Were you a funny child?
I think I was a bit of a character.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't consciously. I only decided to become funny when I saw Ken Dodd at the Opera House in 1960 and watched him decimate 3,500 people twice in a night. And I thought, what a job that is, you know, to watch him manipulate this audience for 3 hours twice in a night, and the atmosphere and the joy that he emanated. I thought, I'd like to do that. So Ken Dodd was responsible, really, for me doing it in the first place.
I was with Ken in Skegness about 2 weeks ago, and I stood there in the wings and watched him at 87 do exactly the same thing. Is he our greatest comedian ever?
He's certainly value for money for all of us, yeah. And he must be impregnated with show business because he never knows when to stop. And in many ways that can be a bad thing because the thing is, Ken is sometimes too good a value for people. Yeah. And he just outstays them. His stamina is absolutely phenomenal. And as a comic, technically very, very, very good. Yeah. A bit dated by today's standards, or having seen an excerpt on the red button on BBC one last night for the Edinburgh. I don't think he's got a lot to worry about. No.
Is comedy, as far as you're concerned, done? I don't find many people who make me laugh like you did in your day. Is it just because I haven't got a sense of humour anymore?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's just, you know what's funny?
Yes.
Quite honestly, these guys who go on and ramble on about the eating habits and domestic, and I don't know. It's just half of it's an exercise in self-indulgence, really.
Do you know, it's very funny you say that. I find that. It's sort of like the narcissist just stand on stage talking about themselves as if I care. I'm waiting for a punchline. I quite like a joke.
That's and Ken certainly got plenty of those. There are not many funny people around at the moment, to be honest.
I remember getting your video in the 90s, and I've still got it on my wall. What I love about people like you and of your generation is that you had a setup, you had some form of story, and then you had a punchline, and then you did it again for 90 minutes. That's sort of gone. Why can't we laugh at punchlines anymore?
It's not the thing to do now in society, to laugh at punchlines. It's to laugh at situations and create it. Just when people talk about themselves and try and create a funny incident and make it into a gag. Yeah. Bob Monkhouse once said the man who tells jokes and it's funny, and there's a funny man who tells jokes. Yeah. And the funny men have gone, like the Tommy Cooper, and unfortunately, Ken can't go on forever. But they're funny men. Yeah. But to talk about somebody like David the Deal. And it's not fair to pick the head out, but his ilk is just not. Newman and Baddiel just left me. That was the start of the death of comedy on television. Yeah. When they just self-indulged, they talked about one another, and it's more intellectual comedy now.
Yeah, I'm not bright enough to keep up. I think that's probably what it is.
I'm not. It's too bright for me.
Is it a bit depressing that all the people that you starred with are more or less gone? I mean, there is Ken left at 87, there's you.
Yeah, that's all there is left.
Yeah.
I can't think. Peter Kay's as funny as you get. And Peter was the start of... it turning, although Peter's a great comic, a funny man, and a clever man.
Yeah.
What Peter did, he didn't disrail comedy. He sent it to a tangent where we started to look at different things to laugh at.
Yeah.
I mean, his last series on television, where he drove the car with the lady in, was verging on the self-indulgent, I thought.
I thought it was rubbish. I didn't laugh once, I'll be honest.
No, and I thought, well, what are you doing, Pete? What are you playing? But, I mean, I think the end game is we're out of fashion now,
yeah.
and comedy, as a commodity, has moved on. It's a different comedy now. And the comedians of today are certainly, they work harder than we did, because when we were doing it with Bernie Manning and Colin Crompton and Ken Good and all in the 70s, we didn't have to work at an act, we just learned gags.
Yeah.
These guys nowadays, who's the fellow who goes on television with his dad?
Jack Whitehall.
Yeah, it's boyhood humour, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And to have his dad on, I would find to have my dad on, being in position. I don't want to do it in front of my dad. I want to go out and make a living.
It's also a bit creepy when you're doing sort of knob gags in front of your father and making...
Oh, yeah, of course. And my wife and my daughter, I don't want to be doing stand-up in front of them. I wouldn't, not that mine's anything all that cheeky, but I thought, oh, no, I'll leave it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, I do.
So, I mean, these guys who go on tour for 150 nights in biggest venues and write a different show every year. I mean, we were never bright enough to do that.
Right.
Or creative enough.
Do you know what, though? There's something cosy about going in a club and hearing those great old jokes. I mean, I remember somebody saying, nobody ever said to Sinatra, don't bother singing My Way again, we've heard it.
You're exactly right. That's if you want to see, I want to go and see a comic and watch him do it. By Jove, Mrs. How tickled. How's that for parachute? I want to see, you know what I mean? I want to hear a funny man. I don't want to have to think about whether it's funny.
Yeah. Who was the best then? Was it Bob Monkhouse as a craftsman?
Bob Monkhouse was one of the best technicians of an act. Ken's just a comical engineer.
Yeah.
He just works with a well-worn 6-hour machine.
Yes.
Which he hones to perfection every time.
Yeah.
And Cooper goes on and just stands there, wears a suit.
Yeah.
For warmth, I think. They didn't like, but it's funny. Now I worship Bob Monkhouse. Bob was so good to me in the early days. But as a technician, he's a man who tells funny stories. And Cooper is a funny man.
Yeah.
I can tell from talking to you now, you know your comedy. The two are worlds apart.
Yeah.
Put Cooper in an alien situation, he'd sink like a bomb.
Yeah.
You know, because you've just got to have the effect of the man and just appreciate the man for what he is. Just a very funny man who does daft things. But for Bob Monkhouse, you've got to listen, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it was Bob who said to Ken Dodd once, the difference between you and me is people love you, people respect me, and that's the difference, I suppose, isn't it?
I know other people, Bob said that to me as well, and he also said, a lot of people don't like me for it, I'm too smooth.
Yeah.
He said to me, when we did Bullseye, he said, if they'd given me Bullseye, it wouldn't have lasted a fortnight.
Mm.
Because he said, I'd want it right.
Yeah.
And Bullseye's about certainly not about getting it right. Bullseye's about getting through it, through hell and high water.
I know. You always came across with humility on that programme, and you looked like you enjoyed it. You looked like it was sort of a lorry that was going down the M1 with the brakes not working, slightly out of control at times. Was it thrilling for you? Was it exciting? How do you view it now in retrospect?
Well, I look back at them, and I wasn't as bad as people put up. I look back at it. They did a programme on Challenge, a tribute to Bullseye, and they did a 2-hour special on the show, and I wasn't that bad. I was embarrassed watching myself at times, and I wasn't that bad. But Bob would not want it like that. Bob would have wanted it to be, I'm right, I'm good, I want to be good, and if it's not right, we'll not do it.
Do you know the reason I love you as a human being and as a comedian is you always came across as warmth on that show, and you never looked better than the contestants, and that's why I think it worked. You were never playing the game that I'm smarter than you. You were one of them, and that's the key to any success with it.
I think it is. I think you're absolutely right. I wasn't on there to be a smart ass and make them look funny. if I look funny, it doesn't matter. They're paying me all to look funny. But
Yeah.
as long as they didn't feel demeaned, I thought that was the joy of it. And it was a good, looking back at it, even the prizes, when you think we were still leaving a motor car away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So the prizes weren't as daft as we... I mean, I know a tea set's a bit naff now, but you've got to remember it's 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a tea set and a toaster and a tea's made was a luxury 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So the prizes weren't all that bad, and the questions certainly weren't all that easy.
And also, just because you're a genius at darts doesn't necessarily mean you've got a knowledge of general knowledge, does it?
No, certainly not. In fact, in some cases, I think it meant the opposite.
Do you have any of those sort of stock wrong answers that still make you laugh all these years later?
Yeah, one I did was, what did Sir Christopher Cockerell invent? And we know it's a hovercraft. And somebody said the weather vane. Another one was one I did. This was me. Where was President Kennedy assassinated? And the woman said Chicago. And there was one thing I said. I couldn't say it now. It's politically incorrect, but I had such a rapport with the contestants. I could be very cheeky with them. And they've got to remember, when we're watching it on the screen, I was next to them, and I could feel the warmth and comfort that they had being next to me. One large lady from Leeds came, Sheffield, and she was a big girl. She wasn't fat, but she was one of these very well proportioned, statuesque lady. But she was a big girl.
Yes.
And she said that I talked to her before we went on, and I chatted with her all. And I said, anything you want to talk about? She said, no, I'm fine, I'm grand. I said, you're a big fine girl, aren't you? This in the green room. And she said, oh yes. She said, yeah. I said, can we talk about it? She said, oh, I talk about my weight. She said, when she was on next to me, I said, now you're from Sheffield, and you're a big fine lass. I thought that's a thing.
Yes.
She said, I've just been on a sponsored Slim. And I said, how much do you owe them? And the silence was deafening. I could never, imagine saying that now.
Yes, very good.
That'd be a hanging offence, wouldn't it?
Well, does it make you a bit sick? I worked at BBC Local Radio for 15 years until I gave in and realised it was full of balls and dopes. I mean, you've had the same gig as I had, mid-morning show there. It's a hard environment to be funny now, isn't it? Even yesterday, there's a huge fuss about a DJ that made some comments about breastfeeding. People take everything awfully seriously, don't they?
It's absolute nonsense. I mean, the prime example of how stupid we get was when Cameron used the phrase swarm.
I know.
I couldn't believe that. I thought that was a delightful description of what they were like.
So what do we call them, a congregation then? Or
well, you could call them a murder. A murder of crows. You could call them a flock.
A what?
A flock.
Oh, a flock. Thank God for that.
You could call them a bloody nuisance, actually.
Yeah.
If you wanted.
When you were there in your day doing those big shows, was it thrilling? Was it exciting? Did you feel showbiz, or did you always live a humble life? I never saw you falling out of clubs in the day. There were never stories about you. You were always relatively private, weren't you?
Well, I seem to be, partly because I got a brilliant marriage, and my wife protected me and the children from the publicity. And we tried to lead as normal a life as possible. And I did fall out of pubs now and again, but usually nobody was there.
Yeah.
I tried to, and I certainly wasn't. I tried not to be controversial.
Yeah.
It's easier to be decent, isn't it? Really.
It is. Also, I think times have changed with these iPhones everywhere and people photographing you.
Yeah. Nowadays, the privacy is, and they're out to make a buck, aren't they? That's the thing. We're more exposed now, definitely.
Does it get on your nerves when you're out and about, or is it a compliment when you're recognised?
Well, they reckon. I had a stroke in November. I'm struggling with my speech now. I hope it's all right.
You're doing all right, mate. Yeah, good.
I feel when people look at me now, I'm aware of it because I've had a stroke and I'm walking with a stick.
Yeah.
I'm walking all right, but not bad. And I was one of the lucky ones. I got away with it, didn't I?
Yeah, you're still here.
I just feel that they're looking at me, and before I became damaged goods,
Yeah.
I always enjoy walking into cafes and nodding and saying hello and saying Super Smashing Great.
Yeah.
Look what you could have won. I did all that with them
Yeah,
because they paid my bills for 20 years.
yeah. And what a great career.
And people in the main, or they were then, and they still are, I suppose, apart from the iPhones and the they're still predominantly, they're very polite, and in this situation I find myself now, they're always very, very nice.
Yeah.
And very caring and affectionate.
We love you, and that's the truth of it. I mean, when I look at your situation now, it must be very frustrating for you, because I'm sure in your mind you're still about 36, aren't you?
Yeah, well, yeah, right, and I'm 78 this week. I've had a good life within showbiz. I've had from 1980 to 96. That was phenomenal, really. Having a game show for 15 years,
Yeah.
going out to averaging 10, 11 million, and it was a successful game despite me almost. So I can't really complain, can I?
No, you can't, absolutely not. And when you found out that it was over, did you see it as an amazing part of your life? Were you bitter, angry? How did you take that blow?
All of them.
Right.
On a bad day, I say why, you know, and on a good day, I think, what would I be doing anyway at 78?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing anything anyway.
Right.
Because I wouldn't be working, because there's the after dinner circuit's gone, and the corporate work's finished, and I certainly couldn't do the O2, so I wouldn't have another. I used to do a good after dinner speech and made a good living at it.
Yeah.
But now I couldn't do an after dinner speech in today's climate. I really couldn't do it, because
Right.
I don't think I'm an act, because all the act was talking about what I'd done, what I'd done as a career, and telling stories, humorous stories about my life. But they want more than that now. They want Phil for a starter.
I get that, but never forget that people care about you, and you've been a big part, like in my life, of theirs. I mean, you can't buy that sort of legendary status.
Yeah, it's nice of you to say so, but I think you are, I'm pleased to say, right. And I do feel that I was a part of, well, I can tell from the emails I get and people talking in the street how much of a part of their life I contributed.
Yeah.
And it was a nice part. You know, I don't look back with regret or remorse or anything. I say, oh, thanks very much.
Do you think the 70s comedians, particularly when we talk about the Will Tappers and the Bernard Manning area, do you think they're maligned? Because it seems to me you can't judge someone on something they did 40 years ago when it was okay then. Times were different, weren't they?
Yeah, of course they were. We were of an age, weren't we? I mean, one of the best timers of the line was Bernard Manning, without a doubt.
Yeah.
The man who could time a punchline, and I mean, I know some of it was horrendous, but Bernard was technically a very funny man, and of his day, it was good value.
Yeah.
It was good value.
Shortly before he died, he invited me around to his house in Manchester to do an interview, and as I left, his parting blow was, son, next time you're passing, fucking pass.
Oh, yeah, he was a very generous man, you know.
Really?
Oh, yeah, we did the Opera House in Blackpool several years ago now, and there was myself, Ken Goodwin, Roy Walker, and George Roper was not very well, and George was on first, and Bernard came to watch us, and we were all backstage, and only me saw it. Bernard went straight up to George, pushed him into a little corner, and shoved a bundle of fivers in his pocket.
Oh.
So, you know, get yourself away and sort yourself out. Never mind this silly bollocks. He said,
Yeah.
Get away and get yourself right. There must have been a grand there at least.
Yeah, how nice. And then, of course, I just want to know how you are as we talk this morning. How you feeling? How's your life?
Well, my life's all right. Fortunately, I've got a gilt-edged marriage of 59 years.
Fabulous.
Which is 56 years, actually. Which is something to be, well, not to be proud of, because I didn't contribute that much to it. I've just got a wonderful wife and two good kids who have done well.
Yeah.
And I've had a good time. As my driver once says to me now and again, we've had some good times.
Yeah. Do you think one of the reasons you haven't ever gone off the rails is because you've got that stability at home?
No doubt, without any doubt.
Yeah.
Without any doubt at all. Without Phyllis, I'd be useless.
Were there moments when you were at Central churning out those bullseyes and you're at the top of your game when you sort of became a bit arrogant and over the top, or did you always keep it in perspective?
I never liked to think I was arrogant. I always liked to think I appreciated the situation I was in.
Yeah.
Because I knew how good I was, and I wasn't as good as luck would have allowed me to be. If that makes sense.
Right.
I was good because I was on a good playing field. I got a successful game show which it took me two weeks in the year I spent making a series, and in 2 weeks I've done a year's work.
Wow.
And so I was a very lucky man.
And the fact it's still repeated on Challenge must be a thrill.
Well, it's going out 12 times a week on Challenge, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's all about luck. It's about right place, right time.
Mm.
I'm sure there's 90% luck. I really am.
Well, I don't know about that. You make your own luck. But how's Tony doing? Do you still stay in touch with Tony?
Well, he talked to him the other day. We had a little laugh about making this programme, and he's in good health. He's had a bit of a worry.
Right.
He had a bit of a scare with cancer, but he's beaten it.
Good.
Yeah, all's well. Touch wood, and I'm still in there batting.
Of all the people you met, of all the stars you worked with, who are the people that impressed you the most, that were the moments where you pinched yourself and thought, I can't believe I'm me?
I cruised on QE2 for 13 years playing trumpet in a Dixieland jazz band.
Yeah.
And that was 13 memorable years playing on QE2, and some of the people I met and talked to.
Wow.
I actually spoke to and played the trumpet for Vic Damone, would you believe?
Wow.
He stood next to me. I was absolutely speechless.
Yes.
And what an absolute gem.
Yeah.
I usually find out, I don't know how you find it, but that the nicer the bloke, usually, the better he is.
Yeah.
The more decent and aware and sensitive your subject is,
Yeah.
the better he is as a performer.
Yeah, exactly. Normally the arseholes are just covering the fact that they're not very good, aren't they?
I think you may be right, yeah. I think you may be right.
We never discussed how you went from being a teacher to a star. What was the moment you were confident enough to give it up and know that you were still going to be able to put a dinner on the table?
I came out of teaching when they stopped letting us nail the little buggers to the desk. I was a deputy head when I finished, and then Ken Dodd was a turning point. That one summer when I went to watch him several times,
Yeah.
and I thought, I want to do this.
Mm.
So I just gathered together some gags,
Yeah.
stole them, whichever way you could listen to them, remember them, and try and tell them.
Yeah.
And then just did that and did the clubs. There were plenty of clubs to work,
Yeah.
so I could pay the bills. And then the comedians came along in '72 when we were on telly. We could get livable money.
Did you ever miss teaching? Was it a passion of yours, or was it?
No, I hated it.
Right.
And I was doing well. I was a deputy head at 29. I was going well. I'd have been ahead by the time I was 30. But I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it.
Right.
It was the start of when, the fabric of society was started to crumble. We had the material on television which we wouldn't even have dreamed of.
Yeah.
Even 5 years previous to that 10 years around the 70s to 80s, that's when we got more liberal with our standards. And it sounds like a terrible prude, and I'm not really. I'm also having a good laugh. I just think time and place, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and you always have to keep things in context. And is it disappointing to you when you see what's gone on with U-Tree and the stars that have gone to prison and those who are maligned? Were you surprised by any of that?
Oh, God, I'm appalled. And the echelons in society, which anybody can do anything, and they were doing it 20 years ago and we missed it. I look at it sometimes now. Is there anything in this country that's straight?
Yeah.
Doping in sport and the travel business, and I don't think that's the tip of the iceberg, to be honest.
Really?
I really don't. And as far as government's concerned, these affairs with politicians and well, things are finding out about it. And they're all finding out about it because of the internet, aren't they?
Yeah.
We're so clever at communicating, we're finding so much out about what we didn't really want to know.
And as we sit here today, 78 years old, a stroke last November, and we look back at our career and we reflect on it, I mean, you must have nothing but pride because you know you're loved, don't you? You do know that.
Yeah. Well, I like to think I am, and I work at it. I try to be not in a gross way, but I try to be acceptable and almost pleasant and a pleasure to be with. So yeah. So I do know and feel privileged that I made a reasonable job of it.
And are you happy for your legacy to be Bullseye? Do you want to be known for that or a comedian?
Oh yeah, not ashamed about that.
Yeah.
And the time with the band on the ships and the stand up when I was doing it was a good stand up spot when it was there.
Yeah.
Of its day. So I didn't do too much wrong.
I don't think you did anything wrong.
I wouldn't tell you.
Yes, exactly. And when you watch those old reruns of Bullseye, is it like seeing your grandson on there? How do you view yourself at this point?
It's funny you say that. My grandson's 10 and 9, and they didn't know I did Bullseye.
Wow.
My daughter had kept it from them, and when they came up week before last, it was on television, and they just watched the television rerun, and they expressed no surprise, dismay, amazement. Granddad's on, and they'd never seen me before, and they just treated it like it was nothing new.
Wow, that must have been thrilling for you. That was touching.
I was quite pleased. It was good. They didn't. I was pleased to look back. I can say I can look back with a reasonable degree of contentment, saying that I didn't do too much damage.
No, you certainly didn't. And from my perspective, I've been lucky enough to speak to many of my heroes over the years, and you're one of them. I'm glad we made this happen. I wish you all the best. Thank you for your time.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, and thank you for the memories.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers, Jim.
Bye-bye.